Welcome to Watching the Horizon. I'm Jake. So I wanted to make this video today because there's a gentleman at where I work, and we'll call him Andrew. And Andrew's a prepper. I knew this from within the first 30 seconds of my meeting him. Nice guy, there's nothing wrong with him. He's definitely a prepper. He has sort of a prepper aura about him, if you will. I enjoy having conversations with him. He is a lot of fun, but his outwardness of being a prepper, I actually think is to his detriment. And I think this is generally true of most people who share his attitude towards prepping. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that you should make public that you're a prepper, at least to your immediate circle of friends and people whom you work with and your local community. This might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but well, as an example, Andrew, where I work, while he does a good job and he's been there a long time, the general attitude of everyone else there is that he's a little off, oh, that's just Andrew. Don't get me wrong, he's a good guy, he's certainly qualified, but he's been passed over for promotions on more than one occasion. He's got a good attitude about it, he tries to let it roll off his back, but you can tell it irks him, and he's not entirely sure why, but I think it's because of his prepper attitude, at work. He talks freely and openly about it. I'm not saying there's anything, wrong with that. It's just the frequency and the intensity in which he likes to talk about this kind of stuff sort of puts him at odds with the dynamic of the other people, in the room. So it sets him apart a bit, and so I think because of that, he's not going to be as quick to get promoted at work. Which, thinking about that, what other aspects of this person's life does his public preparedness attitude does it cause a hindrance? Also, from a standpoint of safety, I think it's a good idea to not really be public about your preps and the types of things that you like to prepare for. The safety aspect I'll get into more here in a little bit, but first I just kind of want to address, prepping really is it's a state of mind. It's a lifestyle. I get that. It's typically ingrained into people. And really not too long ago, it was a way of life for most people who didn't live in the immediate city. Farmers, ranchers, anyone of an agrarian, type of lifestyle. This wasn't just sort of like a, hey, let's be this kind of way. It was necessary. Which really it just stems for a need to, provide for your family, because, winter is coming, and, you can't grow crops in the middle of winter. It's more difficult to feed yourself. And that was just the norm. That was typical. And even people who lived in the cities, had to do without certain things, based on the season. Well, as society became more industrialized, they became more, productive. There's less shortages, and you were able to have more things more often year round. When was the last time you went to the grocery store and you just weren't able to buy, any produce at all, or, meat for that matter? We've gotten to a point now that we're really without want. At least here in the U.S., you go to the grocery store, and for the most part, what you want is there, and it's not terribly typical for, your items, to be out of season. So because, we don't really have that lack of food, during winter or during hard times really anymore. This is not typical of our society. And so people who prep are kind of seen subconsciously as, being untrusting of this thing that we have built, as a society and as a people, that they don't, they don't really believe in. They're not part of the team that, hey, we've made it this far. We don't need to have that old kind of thinking anymore, because that just sort of seems paranoid. Look at where we are, live in the now. It's sort of like, imagine you're on a cruise ship, all right? You're on vacation, you're there for a week, and you're going to hop around, the Bahamas, and you're there for a good time. And it's a big cruise ship. It's been around. It's a good brand, well reviewed. And there's this one guy who's like, oh, these cruise ships, they're just not safe. And these cruise ships, they're always sinking, and what if it does? Are there enough life jackets? Did you bring your own life jacket? And this and that and the other. And they're kind of a big downer, on the attitude of everybody else. It's like nobody wants to hear that kind of stuff. I mean, they're there to have fun. They're there to enjoy. And that's kind of how people are viewed, who are, always constantly talking about prepping, here. It's like, well, why are you even here? It's like, you don't believe in what we've done here. And so it can be, it could be seen as paranoid, or, what ends up happening is people just don't really trust you. And even if it's on a subconscious level, because they see you as somebody who hasn't really bought into, this is where we're at now. Preppers can be seen as socially awkward or even crazy. And frankly, the television and movies, don't really help. Of course, more notably, the television show, Doomsday Preppers, which I think they kind of purposefully looked for some of the more exotic individuals that they could find to help bring more drama to the show. After all, they're looking for viewers. And I think that they were really kind of portraying it more as a freak show, and let's everybody watch, kind of thing. And that's unfortunate, because it really kind of gives the whole prepping community a bad name, and it downplays the real message that most preppers, abide by. And it doesn't help that, there are those of us out there who like to show off, the extravagant, preps. Maybe they purchased a really big military vehicle or something like that, and they decked it out or something. And I mean, that's a little, over the top. And of course, if you were to buy something like that, you'd want to show it off, and yeah, you're gonna get some attention for that. But why would you do that? I mean, it's almost like, somebody who dedicates that kind of time and money into something that is generally seen as unnecessary, at least in this day and age, people will start to question, your decision-making skills. Do you really make good choices, generally? So that's not really something a lot of people necessarily want to be around or, buy into. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's important, in my opinion, that you don't generally need to come off as a prepper. I mean, yes, I get it. Maybe it's your hobby. Maybe it's something you're really into. Maybe you just really enjoy the different aspects of prepping. Maybe it's more about, the hunt of, finding a really good deal on something and then stocking up, or, whatever. And that's, that's one thing. And it's one thing to share that kind of stuff with your friends. You're very, very close circle of friends, but to sort of wear it on your sleeve and definitely make it an outward piece of who you are. I think that there are some consequences of doing that, and I think generally speaking, it would be better for preppers to not really be so public about it. I think it's important that we do continue to prep. Prepping, in my opinion, is definitely important to do. Please continue to do it, those of you who are. But, I mean, it's like, how annoyed are you at other people who, constantly rub their own political agendas in your face, or their own, whatever. And it's like, what? I'm just trying to live my life. So I kind of see it on that same level. But even if you don't care about what people think about you, getting a little bit more into the whole safety factor, the reality is why are you prepping? It's in case something breaks down. It's in case there's some interruption in our industrial chain that allows the grocery stores to constantly be full, or for water to continue to run out of your tap, or the power to keep flowing. If something like that gets disrupted, you want to be prepared. You want to stay warm. You want to have a full belly. You don't want to go thirsty. But if something were to happen, then there's probably going to be breakdowns of other kinds. And do you really want to be known as a resource, to other people? I mean, really, the last thing you want is attention when it comes to something like that. What if the U.S. was to go to war? Like, I'm not even talking about a, meteor strikes the Earth or some sort of Armageddon situation. I mean, what if very real scenarios happen? What if the U.S. goes to war and we have to go on rations again? Most people who are alive today in the U.S. have no idea what it's like to live on rations. I mean, to be honest, I don't. But listening to my grandparents, I know that they did. I have friends that live overseas, and they remember a time when everything was rationed. I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, what if the police came knocking on your door, or better yet, they came knocking on other people's doors because we're in short supply of food or whatever, and police or whatever self-appointed authority gets real intimidating, and they start asking questions, and maybe they're asking hard about how much extra food do you have, and do you know anybody with extra food? Well, people don't forget, and your name's going to come up, and that's a very real possibility. It's happened before. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna end up on a list, and yeah, they're gonna show up to your house, and there you go. So again, you don't necessarily need to be so public about it. What's the likelihood of that happening? I don't know. It could be really good. I mean, if you look at what's in the news today, but I'm digress. What if it was just a natural disaster, like a hurricane or an earthquake or something like that, and your house wasn't hit real hard, but your community was, do you have enough to go around everybody? Does everybody on your street know that you have, tons of food and water, in your house? And there are people out there in real serious need, and you would have been if you hadn't prepped? Well, people are going to remember. So for these reasons, yes, it's important to prep, even for the small ones. It doesn't have to be some big, global disaster. I think it's more likely that some of these, local issues are going to come into play, and those are definitely reasons to prep. But if everybody knows that you hoard food and water and ammo and guns and whatever else, um, you're gonna be looking more like a resource, whether they need to come in and you know take your stuff away officially, or maybe they're going to strongly encourage you to donate. You know, um, if people don't even know that you have it, then you don't really have to worry about somebody pointing a finger at you or naming your name or anybody really to come take it away. Um, just don't brag. Don't show off. Just get it done. Know what the preps you want to make are. Make a list. Go do the thing. And then just keep your mouth shut. Now, of course, you're going to have friends and, hopefully a very tight-knit circle of, individuals that you share with. I mean, that's normal. We're social creatures, and we need that, and that's fine. That's great. But you also don't necessarily need to share the specific details. Like, they don't need to know you have 5,000 rounds of ammunition for this type of gun, and you don't need to know that your neighbor has 500 gallons of water and enough dry food to last two people 3 years or something like that, because that will just put you at odds later. Now, I'm not talking about a mutual assistance group, and this is the purpose for which you have formed. Obviously, this is more of a collaborative effort. But I'm just talking about, socially with friends, talking about your preps. You don't necessarily need to get in so much detail. It's just not important. Don't do it. Don't be a doom and gloomer. It's important for you to have a positive and, an optimistic attitude, towards life and, your everyday dealings with other people. If you're constantly talking about, oh, the government and oh, the super volcano is going to blow, or it's just, one more day closer until the comet hits, or the zombie apocalypse, or I could go on, collapse of the dollar, Trump's going to take us to war. Be positive. And you know what? You can afford to be positive because you're a prepper. You're prepared. So it's cool. You can actually go ahead and have a positive attitude because you're prepared, and not have a positive attitude out of the bliss of ignorance. So you'll sleep a little bit better than everyone else because you're prepared, and because you know that the whole town doesn't necessarily know that you're a prepper. So anyway, just my 2 cents on the subject. I hope you keep your eyes open. Thanks.